inane snickering. Okay, let's see.
Deadly serious. Just think about the caboose.
Alright, cool. Hello everyone, welcome to a living room of an Airbnb in Sydney. We've got most of TPI here, we've got Patters off to the right monitoring chat. So let Patters know if it sounds like ass and we'll do nothing about it because you can't polish your turd. But here we go. We're going to do a Q&A with the vast majority of us here. We've got Stephen Medway, the game's designer.
Move it a bit, Steve.
We've got Evin Medway, Steve's wife. We've got Jams and Reggie here as well, and myself, Ben, over here, and we're going to be answering as many of the millions of questions that you put in this Q&A channel as we can. But do let us know if there's anything off with the sound. Everything looking good to you, Patters? Okay, very nice.
Alright, it's a thumbs up now, but he had it no response.
Okay, I think we'll kick off with one that is very specific, and I don't think many people are going to be interested in, but I think it's a good one to start with. What's the ETA on more physical content, be it new printed script expansions or just token packs, and how do you expect us to wait this long?
I'll handle the second part of the question. No, that is a very good question. That is something we are working on. Just more physical content.
Look, your chair's broken.
It's not going well. Regular pandemonium. Yeah. Join in. Get on the couch. ETA. So, are we fine if I handle this one?
That's fine.
Yeah, great. Okay, so there is merchandise on the way. I don't want to go into specifics of what it is, but I will. I'm about to anyway. We're gonna have some tote bags, Blood of the Cocktail dice, Little Monster plush doll, which I want like 5 of these things. They are super cute. They'll be available first at PodcastCon Australia this weekend, and then we'll have them available through the website. We're going to have replacement scripts available through the website. We're just kind of getting that ready to sell things that is more than one thing. One thing we are working on is to catch up the offline world with the online world. Expansions will be their own thing, their own big deal, but we will, hopefully before the end of the year, have out every character that's been released as a physical token. Eventually, what we're aiming for is to be able to go into the script tool, you create a custom script, and then you basically say, I want to get these characters, and it will fill an online shopping cart, and you can just order that and a token box. That's the eventual goal. If you like that, let us know. If you think that sucks, let us know. But the ETA on the merchandise is probably this year. So the 4th print run is happening right now. It's due to complete in about 3 or 4 weeks for more copies of Blood on the Clock Tower at Panda GM. And at the same time, our merchandise is being manufactured elsewhere in China with a few of the fun things I mentioned, a few other things. And that will probably ship out in the same containers as those copies and will be ready by Christmas, maybe even Halloween.
Just so you know, Evin, every time you hit this table, a viewer thinks that there's an earthquake happening.
Okay, alright, okay, alright, cool.
A different one each time.
Yeah, does anyone want to add anything to that?
I want to make an earthquake.
Yeah, so I think a part of that question was basically
How do we expect them to wait?
well the expansions is essentially a
yeah.
big part of that question, and probably what we can guarantee everyone watching this wants to know about. Do you have anything?
Patterns? No. So not to monologue too long, but a big part of having a cool game is that you have to have a company to when you have a cool game and it's good, then eventually you have a company and you have to run that company. We are not people who went to business school and figured this out. No,
Says the one person who went to business school.
I was at a business school. I didn't learn anything there other than how to send emails. Yeah.
You made his day by saying that, right? He was setting you up for that.
Steve saw me go to a business school one day. He probably goes to business.
It was a Tuesday.
For me, it was Tuesday. No, so we are still figuring out how to structure things, and that is an iterative process, much like game design. We feel like we're in a structure now where we can give Stephen, who has not said a word yet, by the way, hi, where we can give Stephen the space to be a games designer again and not have to run a business. And I will let Stephen and James may go into more detail, but there is ground being broken on the expansions. Those scripts have always existed, but they need a lot of help. Not to lower expectations too much. Trouble Brewing took, 8 years? Sex and Violence and Batman Rising each took 5 years. We're not going to do that timeline, but writing a character is different than writing a script. Those scripts, to get as ironclad and bulletproof as Trouble Brewing and Batman Rising and Sex and Violence are, they need to marinate a bit, but ground has been broken. I'm going to throw to Stephen and James. You want to talk a bit more about where expansions are at? Yeah?
Oh, sorry, I think you said everything I would want to say. Cool.
Okay. Let's move on to another question that nobody has ever asked before. Lil Monster writes up when?
Sorry, do you mean the rulebook?
I think mean like an almanac entry, but actually we can kind of take this a bit further. You recently said that there is a Lil Monster write-up, and there is currently a massive divide in the community where 50% of people thought you were joking, and 50% of people think that there really is a write-up. So can you expand on that at all for us?
Yeah, I wrote a whole bunch of almanac entries just before, either just before or just after Kickstarter, and they just the rules of the game got changed and a lot of characters got changed and they became a bit out of date, so I never ended up adding them to the main rulebook. So it's pretty much done. I can add it today if you want it today.
Wow.
Yeah.
Done.
What do you mean done?
No, sorry, yeah. One more day. I don't know. It's...
Well, there you have it, everyone. Lil Monster write-up is basically on the doorstep. Okay, this is a really good one, and I think this is a good one to start with the kind of not business-related ones. Steve,
Mm-hmm.
of all the characters in the base 3 scripts, which one was the most difficult to balance around when designing the other characters around it?
Evil Twin.
Evil Twin. Why is that?
No, sorry. Evil Twin was the most difficult to make work with everything in Sex and Violence. Because you need a reason for the Vigor Mortis to kill the Evil Twin. So it needed a whole bunch of rewording. It needed to fit. So the Evil Twin was just an absolute nightmare to get right. In terms of balance, probably
Something on BMR, maybe? That was tough.
All of you.
Yeah.
I actually have no idea. It's a bit of a cheap shot, but probably to say Ravenkeeper, in that I had about 5 or 6 different versions of the Ravenkeeper, and they were all broken. And like if you look at the original Ravenkeeper, it's got nothing at all to do with the current Ravenkeeper. It looks like they live in different worlds. So yeah, Ravenkeeper was just the safe choice after about 5 or 6 failed efforts. But Evil Twin gets the prize anyway because it was a nightmare.
Okay. We've got a question with regards to translations. The Spanish edition is known for coming up in Q4 of this year. How much delay after that can we additionally expect for other language editions, or are they all going to come out at once?
For those watching at home, Q4 is business speak for the 4th quarter. No, okay. Yeah.
That wasn't the question. No, still.
Okay. Translations. Currently, in the current print run, there is Spanish and German. Spanish with Bumblebee. German with Funtails. Coming up is Russian with Lavka Games. And Czech language are the 4 translations locked in with already simplified Chinese. They're ready to go. So that's where we're at with translations. German and Spanish are coming out with our current print run. They're printing at the same time. One of the reasons our print run is delayed a little bit is we wanted to wait to print at the same time as those translations, so we could all go together. That's it.
Brilliant. This is a good one. This is a really fun one, actually. Stephen, are there any characters where the flavor text came first and the rest of the character evolved from that?
Yeah, and if she gets them,
If we guess them.
if you guess them, you get my a heartfelt thank you.
That's not how... See,
5,000 Butler tickets.
that's not how a Q&A works. We ask you the question and you answer it.
All right, so it's my first day. That's actually a really good question, and I don't know the answer to it. A lot of characters, the theme or the joke, like the peasant, for example, which we were talking about the other day, that came first before the actual ability.
No,
We thought, let's make an ability.
It's also not a thing that anyone knows about.
Let's make an ability that sucks. A lot of the idea for a character and the theme for the character came before the ability. So I had the idea in mind before the mechanic, and I also can't answer this question because the one character that I can think where the flavor text came first is about to be released.
Orthodontic. I like it. Do you have a particular... Do you have a favourite flavour text at all, Steve?
So much. To be honest, I love the barber. I don't know who wrote that.
No.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I think
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't remember that.
I really
We
like
talked
the
about this.
Did you know that barbering and surgery were once the same
Yeah.
profession?
Oh, that is me, yeah. That is
No, you
yeah. I like that's my favourite as well then. What about the rest of you?
And
it was
the drunk is classic.
Yeah.
Go
Yeah.
on.
It was John for the snitch. It was John.
I like the imp. The imp write up is just like really good vibes. But I recently liking the harlot, but in Gilbert Gottfried voice. Go and do that if you're near a rulebook or the wiki. Yeah.
Nice.
You got a favourite?
James?
Oh god, I should know this because we were literally just talking. We were like doing flavor text yesterday, and I like a lot of them. I like the ones that aren't actually words and they're just sort of noises. Those appeal to me quite a lot.
So, Reggie, you've been playing the game with
Yeah,
the
if
flavor
anybody
text.
wants to play our fun game, you have to choose one of the flavor texts to be your next Tinder bio. Which one are you going for?
Let us know in the comments.
I've got a question for you.
The flavor text that I'm both most proud of and most regret is the recluse.
Oh,
Every time someone wants to do a translation, I get an email saying, "What the hell is this?"
I'm convinced that flavor text translates into like "get off my lawn," but then I really thought it was actually trying to say like a real thing. Get off my lawn.
We have got another question with regards to the unreleased expansions. Will they come out at roughly the same time, or all at once, or like within a year of each other, or will there be like a significant period between them? And I suppose on top of that, because I get asked this all the time, do you know whether or not we'll be kickstarting them, or will we be selling them as a company without Kickstarter? Evin, go.
Whether to crowdfund at this point, crowdfunding is a marketing tool. It's a great way to draw attention to a product you have. Honestly, the first Kickstarter campaign, we did a lot right and we did a lot wrong. And I kind of just want a second go to fix those mistakes from the first one. And we're better at it now. Or we should be.
We went to business school.
Yeah, we went to business school.
At least twice.
At least twice. And I'm leaning towards crowdfunding, but we haven't made any decisions yet about which probably between GamePound and Kickstarter. We might not. We might just go, hey, we've got a really good product, so we'll just do a pre-order and let folks buy it. In terms of whether they come out together or come out one at a time, I'm gonna speculate and then throw it to Steven because this is
We can talk about that.
well, yeah, they really the difficulty of the expansions is that the rosters might change between them, so they kind of do come through at the same time. Like before Sex and Violence and Bad Rising and Trouble Brewing were solidified, there was a bit of traffic between those scripts. So it does, I think, help to do them together. But I'm going to throw to Steven and James on this one.
And I don't know about release, but in terms of design, they're all going to be ready at the same time. Because there are characters that are fun and there are characters that are filler. And every script needs to have both. And to design one script is really easy because you put all the filler characters in there that make things work smoothly, but aren't necessarily conducive to the most fun script. But if I'm designing 3 scripts at once, I can take characters from one, put it in the other, and make sure that it's all consistent and that all 3 of them work. So I'd like to release all 3 at once, but we'll make that decision when it comes time to kickstart. But all 3 scripts will be ready at the same time. That's what I can tell you.
Okay. Puff Puff Duck, your question is brilliant, but we have too many, so I'm going to skip over it. Perhaps we can all talk about which character we would most like to boop on the snoot and let it down. The game's production is pretty incredible. Thank you. I love the Grimoire stand and the feel of the components. Was wondering if your team had considered creating deluxe components or accessories to the game. Etsy has a fair amount to offer, but it's something I think you all should consider.
The answer to that is yes, we have considered this. We want to do it. It's just a matter of when, not if, I think, on this one. Yeah.
I think it's also a matter of priority of knowing like how much time we have as a team to work on different things, and if it's a choice between taking time to work on the expansions, get merch up and running, and have extra cool components for the Grimoire, like we want to make sure that we're prioritizing those things correctly.
Yeah. Also, it's something that do we do it ourselves with Panda? Do we contract out to someone else to do it? I'll give a really quick shout out. We've got some stuff coming through. Reggie, do you want to talk about Gallery Serpentine for a bit?
Yeah, sure. We have got a friend of Steven's who's an amazing artist and clothes designer making some like really incredible, like specific clock tower pieces. So they include some boots, some capes, and some hoodies. This gallery is serpentine, so we're basically going to have their products that are certain part of our website that links straight to them so that you can purchase them. And so yeah, we've gotten a lot of designs from Stephanie, who's behind all of that, and they all look incredible. Like,
Yeah.
I want
So-
all of them.
Really cool.
It's so that's not game components, but it is a model for how we can work with someone who is making like really top running quality stuff, and this seems to be working out. Some of those pieces I think will be at ClockTowerCon Australia this weekend, and then eventually through online. But yeah, the door is open for fancy components.
Yeah, we are working like a lot of those things. Like we have had the company, like kind of the game's been published for about 2 years, and then we've been like working through like just setting up a company that can run and do that. And now I think we're on the fourth print run where we're sort of like behind getting the game, the one game that we have made out, and we are starting to figure out ways that we have the time and the capacity for all these other projects that we've been really keen to do, and they're all kind of snowballing now. I think the next couple of years is going to be whoa.
Awesome stuff. This is a good one. What is an effective way to reflect on games you've story told? How do you ensure you are improving? Is there a metric you use to classify a good game? That's a really good question. I'm going to jump in for a moment if that's okay, because this is one that I can actually contribute to. The best way to tell whether or not you, or in my opinion at least, the best way to tell whether or not you've run a good game is the post-game conversation that your players have. I can't remember a single game where immediately upon its end there wasn't a huge discussion that involved everyone playing about, oh my god, you were this thing, and I can't believe that happened, and all this kind of stuff. When they're all talking about the game immediately, you know you've made a compelling experience. I've seen a lot of storytellers will immediately step in because they're desperate to give the roll call, and I understand why they feel that way, and they want to be like, they want all of the players to spoil all the surprise of the roll call, but I would say don't do that. Like, let your players talk. That is their moment for their debrief, and that's fun for them. And obviously, as the GM, you're entitled to fun too. But let them have that chat, and then step in and clarify the things. And the best way to know whether or not you're improving is to talk to your players. It's like any other RPG-esque game. At the end of the game, ask your players what they thought of your decisions. Ask them what they found fun. Ask them what they didn't find fun. The improving is 50% getting objectively better and 50% knowing your audience and tailoring it to what they like. If I know that somebody is not particularly keen on this specific mechanic, unless it's absolutely necessary, I might ignore it for that reason, because it's more important to me that they have fun than that I get to do all the things that I want to do. But yeah, if you guys have anything you want to throw in there?
I think beyond after the game, thinking about how people are talking about it and how excited they are in the conversation, during the game, one of the things that I often use to measure whether or not I'm running a good game is how much people are laughing. If people are cracking up during the game, regardless of whether it's directly related to Clock Tower, it's just I've created a space where people are having a lot of fun. That's one of the ways that I measure it. For me, Clock Tower is all about fun. And actually, this is a good example. I once ran a game where I think this is probably the worst mistake I've ever made as a storyteller. The spy nominated the monk, and the Grim had been facing the opposite direction. You're looking because you were there. Pax was in this game. I was like, Richie is executed and dies, and the person who had been nominated was like, but I'm not the virgin. And I was just like, oh no. I completely messed up this game, ruinous mistake. And I just kind of looked and I was like, you know what? Everyone's having a blast. This is fine. And that is one of the most talked about games in that group of players, just because it was so silly and so fun. And it's like, you can make massive mistakes as a storyteller, and if you're still prioritizing the fun that your players are having, it means you're doing something right. And I think, when thinking about how to improve, how do you kind of clock in, part of it is knowing the rules and knowing the interactions, but a huge part of it, and a really crucial part of it, is knowing how to check in on your players and making sure that you're prioritizing your players' fun at every twist and turn of the game. And so I think as long as you're continuing to try and do that, continuing to pay attention to the interactions and think about the game and think about how can you make decisions that are really fun and interesting and exciting, then you're going to continue to get those moments of laughter throughout games and really engaging discussion afterwards.
Anyone want to jump in?
No, that's great. We had the double mayor game. Now we have the double virgin game.
Yeah.
Okay. This is one that's mostly for you, Steve. Is the madness mechanic an original mechanic invented entirely by you, or did it take inspiration from another game?
I think it's original.
I'm not
aware of any other game that does that.
I think it was original. I remember the moment Madness came into existence. We were playing at Exiles Gaming Warehouse in Sydney, and just during a game, someone said to someone else, just, "You're mad," like, as in, like, whatever they were doing. And Steven just kind of went, that should be a thing. What would madness mean in this game? And from that generated what madness became. So I remember that moment clearly. It's like, light bulb, madness should be a thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back and answer the flavor text question.
Well, why not?
Are there any characters that were designed with the flavor text first? There's a whole mechanic designed from the flavor text. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it's original. I mean, it's drawn inspiration from role-playing games, but the link is pretty tenuous. But as far as I'm aware, it's original. But yeah, that's actually a really good, a really good example of something that sounded right. There was an intuitional click that this is something that belongs in the game or that would be a good addition to the game, and then we figured out the details later on.
Wicked. How are you finding Australia so far? Weather is surprisingly bad. Next question.
It's winter, dude. I'm in a t-shirt. It's fine. It's fine. How am I fighting Australia for the past 40 years? Yeah. It's fine. Yeah.
I got my dreads wet yesterday walking around for 10 minutes. I thought it was supposed to be sunny here. Okay. Oh, this is a good one. Recently, a lot of characters have had their abilities rewritten or new jinxes added between them. Is this trend going to continue?
For a bit, yeah. There's a lot of characters that don't work properly or are broken. But what is more common is that the way that they're written is not consistent either with characters that exist or with characters that are up and coming. So what I need to do is to make sure that what the characters that are online at the moment are written in such a way that they function as a standalone character, in that they're fun and they're balanced and they're powerful and all the rest of it. That they fit into the edition that they belong. A great example of this is the marionette. The original marionette had a poisoning, had the keyword poison in it, and I changed that out for the Kickstarter because it wasn't necessary. But the marionette poisoning or being poisoned is quite crucial to Garden of Sin, so I may need to put poisoning back into the marionette. The functionality will stay either the same or as close to identical as possible, but the actual wording and the way that functionality is implemented may change. There's nothing major happening, balloonist accepted, but it's more about tinkering and making sure that everything is as smooth as possible. Not for today, but for the entire future of Clock Tower. So it'll continue, and there'll be some mistakes made along the way. The difference between characters and jinxes and updates is that characters I really think about a lot and make sure that they're perfect before we print. Whereas jinxes are a little more experimental. I don't mind jinxes that just are good enough to get the job done. And if anyone, if anyone has a better idea for a jinx, I'll just update the jinx. Because jinxes are meant to be there for fun, to smooth things over, and they're not a crucial part. They're a necessary part of the game, but they're not a really important part of the game. So jinxes will probably get a whole bunch of updates, particularly as new characters come out, and a new jinx gets added that makes older jinxes redundant, or older jinxes need to be reworded to match either for function or for consistency, the newer jinxes that are coming out.
There you go, you heard it here, folks. If you have an idea for a jinx, inundate Steve with emails.
Yeah, my email is Evin at.
I'd like to add to that for a bit as well. To talk about jinxes. One of the design goals for the base 3 editions, one of the many reasons for the long delay between Kickstarter and printing was Steven had the goal of no jinxes between the base 3 characters.
Sorry, I thought you were talking about the base 5 script. Sorry.
No. Trouble Brewing, Bad Rising, Second Class. I'm fairly certain there are no jinxes between any of those characters on any of those scripts, and that took a lot of time, a lot of tweaking to get right. But in terms of the character changes, the things that are happening now, what you're seeing, from my point of view, is Steven engaging now with opening the process up. You're seeing him do, with a now global game, what Reggie and I saw him do for 5 years with just the same 40 people in Sydney, where you turn up to a game and be like, I've changed this character. We're like, great, let's rip, you know? And that is fun. It's part of the design process, and it's something that is just giving Steven a really fucking good, game designer the space to F around and have fun with this stuff is kind of what's happening right now. And yeah, that seems accurate, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. This one's an interesting one. I don't know if you'll actually have an answer for this. But out of the base 3 characters, which one are you the least happy with the current state of? Is there one? Should we answer that question? Should I have asked it?
I'm going to change it to you kill one player every 3 nights. If you have dreads and a bandana, twice per night as standard rules. Professor, I really wanted. I really couldn't get Professor working. It's difficult to fight. It's difficult to bluff as. If I had my time again, I'd redo Professor.
There you have it.
I think I nailed it.
Biggest surprise in how the community took a new character. I imagine that from the process of creating playtesting and seeing it free in the real world, sometimes it must take a completely new life. For me personally, I was quite surprised at the response to Summoner. Because before Summoner coming out, I loved that character so much, and I still do now, just as much. I thought, everyone's going to love this. It's not like anything else out there. It's like, build your own evil team on day 3. Try and make it look like there's a demon in play until then. All of the stuff that makes for an exciting experience as an evil player. But I've got the privilege of being able to play with loads of people who are all, really lovely people to play with. And it hadn't crossed my mind at all that character could be weaponized to make someone who hates evil be evil, or it could be played in a group full of people who hate being evil, and therefore they're going to know which ones you picked because they're the ones that like being evil and things like that. Hadn't crossed my mind at all. So when all of those concerns were raised, it was completely a shock to me. Someone's at the door. This isn't a bit. There really is someone at the door. Do you guys have any answers to that?
Hello.
So excited.
It's here.
Who is here?
This is James.
Oh, hello. Oh, he's got beer.
Oh!
She's gonna try and step over these cables. Oh, cheers, mate.
It's so
That was the little monster right up.
Going again.
It's here in a right.
So yeah, do you guys have any answers to that?
I thought Legion would rock your world. It didn't. I thought Parliament would stop. Global leaders will come together saying we've been doing it all wrong all this time. We all need to focus on Legion and how awesome it is. I love Legion. It wasn't a downer, but I really thought it'd make a splash because of it. But some of the other ones I've seen go the other way. Nothing springs to mind, but there are a couple of characters that are really strong but seem weak, that when they released they just kind of fizzled but then grew over time. I think Farmer.
Yeah.
Farmer's really good.
You've talked in the past about a few characters that were on the cutting room floor basically, and Amy fought for them. And Fearmonger is one of those that you were like, this is no good.
Yeah,
And
Fearmonger Boondandy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like characters that I actually. This is why I'm not in marketing. I like characters that don't impress you immediately. That you look at and go, that doesn't make a lot of sense. That's a bit meh. And then a month later, I'll get a message saying, "I love this character. This is the greatest character of all time."
High Priestess was like that.
Yeah, High Priestess is like that. It's a really subtle character that you need to get used to, but when you do, I think it's a really good idea, and I think it's really fun, and it grows on you. Yeah.
Good answer. Can you guys try and be a bit more quiet in the kitchen, please? Okay. This is a really good one. Any plans for an original soundtrack or any other sort of composition? If not, what kind of themes, musical styles / genres would you explore? That's a good question, because music to play Clock Tower 2 comes up quite a lot for me.
Blood on the clock.
We're gonna get a strike. Watch out!
Oh yeah, 7 seconds.
I was singing that like 3 hours ago in here.
Okay, you're asking was I secretly here?
Yeah.
I
We just both had the same idea independently of each other.
That is the correct answer.
Yeah.
Were you really thinking that 3 hours?
Yeah, I've been doing it for years. Every time I see the name written, my brain's like, blood on the clouds, fire in the sky.
I have a story of
that door's locked. All right.
There are no plans at the moment. I remember a couple of years ago, I was running the city I used to live in, Newcastle. I was running a game for the Newcastle group. We brought a Bluetooth speaker, and I was looking up Clock Tower playlists. And I saw it on Spotify. It was, Blood on the Clock Tower official playlist. And I was like, someone's put together an official playtest. Who's this? And then realized it was Andy who put it together. I'm like, oh, that is the official playlist. So there is an Andy curated playlist on Spotify in terms of generating original music. It's been talked about. It's not anything we currently have plans for. But Stephen, do you want to talk about music in Clock Tower and how that goes?
Well, I'm a huge dark ambient fan. If you're looking for really great background music, Desiderai Marginis or Raison d'etre are fantastic. A lot of the dark ambient genre came out of Europe about sort of 10, 20 years ago, but it's still going really strong today. So dark ambient is fantastic for Clock Tower. There's also a band that did a lot of work for Dungeons and Dragons called Nox Arcana. It's a little cheesy, but it's really moody if you're looking for something to just play in the background. So I always like that more gothic themed music, however you come across it, until someone played electro swing at night. And there's nothing like doing it. If you're a storyteller, there's nothing like doing a night phase to really snappy jazz. It's just
so weird. That's exactly what I was going to say. So my go-to for night music is a category that only a few bands fit into, but it's like swing style music, but with a slightly sinister edge. The lyrics are.
Yeah.
So there is one of my favorite artists is Andrew Bird. Before he did solo stuff, Andrew Bird's Bowl of Fire was his band. Some of their early albums are exactly that, and they are perfect for the night phases. They're really good, and they talk about demons quite a lot. So it's just so it's like swing music where they're just talking about these weird little things. That's my go-to.
There's
So swing music is the answer.
Yeah.
I was putting together a playlist for Trouble Brewing where each song name was the name of the character, and there is a folk song that I found called Empath, and the opening line is "I'm an empath, I'm a saint," which is the perfect song if you are bluffing saint.
What did you do for Butler?
Well, no, he hasn't done one for every character.
Oh no, yeah. What did you do?
What did I do for Butler?
Yeah, on that playlist.
I can't remember.
I'm a butler. I'm Timmy Butler.
I'm a butler.
Yeah.
But back in the early days before Clock Tower came out, when we were running what at the time was the prototype homebrew game of Clock Tower, we would put Fresh Prince of Bel-Air on every night because it just works and everyone sings along and that comes up the song you're walking around. Right, we probably stayed on this question longer than we should have.
I'm not the imp.
This is an interesting one. I'm pretty sure I know the answer to it, but I'm going to ask it anyway because it's fun. Are there any plans to release flipped alignment tokens as an expansion in the future? In the future, it would definitely add the same ease as the app. So I think what the person's
You just turn it
yeah,
Sit down.
you can turn it upside down. This person's asking if they can get like an evil monk token and an evil empath token and like an evil version of every token.
I feel like that's more complicated than turning it upside down.
Yeah, you don't
Yeah.
have to find
You have to
them
go
and
find
know
your evil
Just thinking out loud, we could do it.
that. We could. We could. I think it goes back in the category of things that are like
Everything's red. Probably able to do that.
It would,
Does anyone here know Photoshop?
Never used it in my life.
it would be like a premium thing, wouldn't it? That like people who've got who can afford to buy luxury items,
Yeah.
and they just because ultimately, really, the storyteller's the only person that's going to be looking at this, right? So if you're really, really into the game and you just really want to be able to immediately at a glance see who's red and who's blue, I suppose that would be. But I mean, I feel like it wouldn't have much of a market, would it? Really, it's not something that we'd be able to produce and sell with the expectation that there would be a lot of things made, and so I'm almost inclined to say, make your own.
Well, at the risk of raising expectations, just to talk about the manufacturing process for a second. Panda GM, great partner, good manufacturer, we love Panda. They don't really care what's on the punch boards. They care what shape the punch boards are, which is why there are a lot of work. We care what's on the punch board.
Yeah, it's just, you had 100% of my attention.
No. We
Probably
have
open every email.
Get back in the
a lot of work went into making sure that the whole tokens for the base game and the Kickstarter tokens for those who had them are the same punch board. I think four of the same punch board for the Kickstarter tokens, 8 of the same punch board in the base game. They're the same shape. What you put on those, they're like it doesn't matter. Like they can be different images, different things. It doesn't affect the cost to do different images. It's just how many are you printing, what shape is the punch board. So getting into what we want to do, which is make all the individual tokens available separately. We could feasibly be like, hey, make 99% of them regular, and for the other 1%, just flip that color. Talking out loud here, playing with live ammo, I don't think we'd do that, but it's plausible. Yeah, like
It'd be quite awkward. You'd need
Yeah.
to have twice the number of tokens in your grimoire, whereas if you're doing, if you had, that could be useful for like a custom script that has a lot of alignment flipping, but for general use, having to have a second copy of all tokens, it would get quite clunky. It'd be useful for very specific circumstances, but generally it'd be more clunky than that.
Yeah, especially because characters that interact with seeing other players' characters don't see alignment. So if you had a Dreamer, for example, and there was an evil Night Watchman in the game, you wouldn't be able to show that evil Night Watchman token to that Dreamer. You need to actively have both tokens on hand at the same time, which I think it makes it, a lot more clunky. Cool though. Like, who wouldn't want to sleep next to an evil butler every night?
and you know, that's play the text for someone.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't want to sleep next to an evil butler? What is this, Gosford Park?
Yeah.
A movie I've never seen. But yes.
Oh, it's good. You should watch it.
Oh yeah, it's Robert Altman.
Yeah, it won an Oscar, didn't it? I think.
I'll right now. I'm off to watch Gosford Park.
Right. Oh, this is a good one. How often are new characters being created and playtested currently? That is a good question. a lot is the short answer, I think, right?
Yes,
Or at
so
least
much.
play tested, certainly. Do you guys want to take that away?
Yeah, so one of the really awesome things about doing a company restructure is that we've actually managed to build in a much more structured process for playtesting new things. And so just kind of logistically speaking, Steven and I basically meet almost every day of the week, and we chat about what sorts of things we want to be testing, what sorts of things we want to maybe see added to the game. From that, I have a list, a big spreadsheet of essentially everything that we might want to test, kind of organized by priority, by what exactly that is testing, by what that brings to the game, by whether or not those characters are things that we're considering adding to expansion scripts, for example, because we want to really make sure that we're putting our time and energy into characters that need to be tested, that really need to be refined. Sometimes we see a character idea and you're just like, yeah, we know that's going to be good. We're still going to play with it a little bit just to make sure that it meets our expectations and that it does the things we think it's doing. Other times we come up with something, usually Steven comes up with something, he goes, this is janky as hell, let's do it. And so I think it's really, really important that we all have the space and have the time to be able to bring characters to a small group of players and say, hey, we're going to do this thing. It's probably going to be really broken, and that's one of the really tough things with playtesting is that you have to go into those games knowing this is probably going to be weird and bad, and I might just lose completely, but it's not about, like, more than anything, and I very much am a person who plays Clock Tower not to win, but to have fun and to be in a room full of friends, and it's not to say that there's anything wrong with wanting to play Clock Tower because your priority is wanting to win a game of Clock Tower, but I know for me, it's really about the experience of being there, and I think for our playtesters, it has to be about diving into something that's weird and a little bit broken, probably, and kind of pushing the limits of what is maybe not so good about characters. Like when I'm storytelling a game in general, I'm always making choices that have my players fun at the core of that decision. When I am storytelling playtest games, I'm often making decisions that are very much antagonistic to what I am inclined to do as a storyteller, because I want to know where the line is. How broken is this thing? And I will make a choice that I know will make people upset because I need to know how broken that thing is and how we can dial it back so that it becomes something fun, or how it can become something fun. So yeah, all the time is the short answer, and there's a lot of really cool, really weird stuff in the works.
I will say, some of the early playtest games, it feels like, you know the scene in The Simpsons at the start of one of the Halloween episodes where the censor is laughing at jokes and then going, no, and crossing them out? That's what a lot of playtest is. The first ever Psychopath game was so broken and so funny. It's like, this was one of the most fun games we've ever had. I think Philip killed 3 people as the Psychopath before we could even nominate him. That's how broken it was. It's like, how are you doing this? And it's like, this didn't work, but this was fun. And just story time. The iterative process of figuring out what's broken, playing to that lowest common denominator, going, all right, what could someone do with this that might not be fun? I will do that now so we know for sure.
Brilliant. This is an interesting one. I think it might be difficult to answer because one, it's comparing two things, one of which has happened and one of which has not yet happened. But would you say, Steve, that it was harder to create the 3 base scripts or the 3 expansion scripts?
Base scripts. Because I didn't know what I was doing. Yeah, it's true. There's a lot of stuff in the base scripts that, for 2 reasons, either that it's never been done before in a social production game, or if it has, I wasn't aware of it. So my experience was, I'm doing this for the first time. Madness took a lot to get right. Drunkenness and Poisoning took a lot to get right. Just a script having the character spread that it had was there's just enough characters for bluffing to happen at larger player counts, but not so many characters that it's overwhelming for new players. I'm going to regret saying that. yeah, the base 3 scripts were really, really difficult because getting the core. I was designing the base scripts at the same time as designing the core mechanics of the game. Like for the first 6 months of the game, I had a little token, which I had in my grimoire. I had this big token for everything so I could show from across the room, and that was really great for players who were waking up in low light conditions or who had bad eyesight, or I couldn't get to them because even the setup of the room, it wasn't even a circle in the initial setup. So I had to have these cards to show to people.
You were poking people. I think you had
Poking people with a curtain.
We had a curtain rod. We were poking people away because we couldn't move around the room.
Initially, minions. The demon didn't know who its minions were, but the minions knew who the demon was. So the base 3 scripts got designed as the core mechanics of the game were happening. So when a core mechanic would change, I had to rewrite all the base 3 scripts. When I would rewrite something, one of the characters in the base 3 scripts, and then that would change the core mechanic, and I have to go back and rewrite that. So the base 3 scripts are definitely the hardest. Expansions are hard in a different way, in that most of the character ideas are just more complex. The simpler, with the exception of stuff like Steward and Knight, most of the simple characters have already been designed because designing something simple is easy. And when things are complicated, they interact in complicated ways, and that's really it's difficult in a different way. But I know what I'm doing now, so it's less of a problem. But that's a really good question.
Is it fair to say that Sex and Violence was the most difficult of the base 3?
Batman Rising.
Really? How's that?
Booker. It's a nightmare.
That is true, yeah.
Booker and the Goon, the kind
Booker,
of
Goon.
the rules troubleshooting Slack channels we had for the Booker and the Goon. I think each of those is over 10,000 words. Batman Rising is its own ensemble. Those characters work with each other and mostly only with each other. The other scripts are all single kill demons. They all play well, like out there. Batman Rising is the fucking team, and that's hard. That was tough.
The biggest issue with Batman Rising, there were a lot of character issues and what you just said, but the huge issue with Batman Rising was timing. There's a mechanic, drunkenness and poisoning, that removes a character's ability, but gives that ability back when the character or player becomes sober and healthy again. And figuring out the timing of drunkenness and poisoning over the day-night cycle with characters that act at a particular point and cancel drunkenness and poisoning during that cycle, and having that in a way that was designing that in a way that was understandable by the storyteller, and just understandable enough so that it wasn't a nightmare for the players. It was hair-pullingly, inducingly frustrating to get right, and it took a really long time.
Okay, this is a good one. What are determining factors in characters not being a good fit for the game? And has the online app contributed in any way to characters getting cancelled or seriously altered or anything like that?
What was the first part? What are characters?
What are the contributing factors to you saying no, this character doesn't work?
Usually length or unoriginality. If something is just, it does what the pit hag does, but with more steps. Just put. There's enough ideas out there. I'll just use the pit hag. But usually length. There's like the original. There's a lot of characters that I just had to say no to because they're 4 or 5 lines long, and it's like, wow, this is great, but if you get a character sheet and it's got 5 of those characters, it's just such a slog to get that initial understanding. So that's been the biggest factor. And very rarely I'll take that long idea and put that into a keyword and put that keyword in the glossary and say, hey, now it's 1 line.
Yeah.
But that's been the biggest factor.
This one's already been kind of partially replied to, but it has some new elements to it, so I'll go ahead and ask it anyway. In the far future, If the if the infrastructure exists, would you ever let customers order script sheets for their own custom scripts, printed in the style of the official stuff? What about tokens? Ordering homebrew tokens, etc., with all the amazing quality of the official stuff?
I would love that. It's just figuring out. I mean, print on demand exists for things like T-shirts. If we can, yeah, it is a far future thing. If there's a way to do it that we can achieve, it's certainly not a priority. But allowing people to order like bespoke, like panda quality tokens and scripts as a print on demand thing. Yeah, I don't see it happening soon, but I would love to do that. Yeah.
Awesome. Someone here has asked a 5-part question that involves several paragraphs. I'm very sorry, Keck, but I am going to ask the last bit of this because I think it's something that gets asked a lot, and I think people would be interested to hear a response to it. What was the reasoning that led to having the Butler? What do you feel about this character? Now, I think there is an implication in that question, an incorrect one, that the Butler is bad. It's not. It's awesome. But I think a lot of people would be interested to hear your take on this, Steve. What you feel the Butler adds to the game, or specifically to Trouble Brewing and the beginner experience.
Well, the Butler was the first and best character ever created. And I built Trouble Brewing around the Butler.
It used to be called Butler on the clock tower.
The reasoning for including the Butler is in Trouble Brewing is twofold. First of all, Trouble Brewing needs outsiders that are not loud. So stuff like, what's a good example? Mutant. Actually, that's a bad example. Trouble Brewing needs characters that are outsiders that are not loud, and they're not really crippling for the player to use. So, for example, Mutant. Mutant is loud. You get to prove that you're the mutant. That becomes an extra point of strategy that I didn't want the evil team to have to bluff against in Trouble Brewing. And it also uses a lot of outsiders are quite difficult to play if you're a first timer. For example, Klutz. So finding a good set of outsiders for Trouble Brewing was quite difficult. They needed to be really, really fun. They needed to be all totally unique. They needed to be invisible, so that the evil team wouldn't accidentally trip themselves up in bluffs. Like, you're the mutant. Or you're claiming to be the mutant. Well, I'm really the mutant. Oh, you get executed. Oh, no, but I'm really the mutant. That's... a veteran player can pivot when they're in that bind of what to say, but a new player can't. The Butler is, at its core, it's a character that is designed to get people talking and team building. If I'm your Butler, what I want to do is to talk to you. I want to go up to you and I say, I've chosen you, I'm your Butler. How are you planning on voting? How do you want me to vote? Are we on the same page? The core idea of the Butler is a way to get a player, particularly a new player that is an outsider, talking to the other players in the room and making friends. So the Butler has an ability that is a net negative for the team, but if you can turn it into a positive by teaming up with the appropriate person, it's actually a fun social experience for you as well, more than a mechanical benefit. So, all jokes aside, the reason that I like the Butler is because it provides enough of an incentive for someone who has a detriment to their team to form a friendship in the game.
That was a great answer.
Just to add in really quick,
And vice versa as well.
I've run so many new player games. The Butler has an extra ability, which is each night choose a player. That player is the end. That's what the Butler does.
Okay, this next question is a somewhat multifaceted one, which straddles a few different things, including some things that we probably intended to discuss in the near future anyway. So I'm just going to go ahead and ask it, and you can all panic when I finished. So,
I'm gonna panic now.
Oh wait, Panic in the Disco.
Anyone who's only just joined the stream will have no idea. Okay, so with one new character per month, but hundreds or so unreleased, how are you planning on releasing characters in the near or distant future? Do you plan to continue this release schedule, or would you rather drop everything at once at some point? So that's a big question. I think it's first of all important to just note that we've intentionally not released vast swathes of characters from one specific script, because we do want, or at least last I heard, we do want that when the expansions are released, that at least half, preferably significantly more than half, of those characters are brand new to you, and you're buying a lot of new content at once. So that's something we've deliberately avoided doing, which I assume is something we're still deliberately not doing. And also, we will be stopping the character releases at some point, right?
Probably. That's sort of where we've been trending. Do you mind if I kind of talk to this for a bit? Hi, I'm here to kill the fun. That's what I'm doing.
That's your job.
Now.
You learned how to do that at business school.
I did. That was the no fun school.
He's the butler.
Yeah. I choose you. No, the character releases. Just from a logistical perspective, what goes into a character release takes up so much bandwidth and time and effort from so many different people in the company. It needs to be designed, art needs to be created, almanac needs to be written up, it needs to go into the schedule, the streams need to happen. It's something that's fun and cool, and I think long term, at the very sort of end stage clock tower, for as long as Steven wants to design characters after the expansions are released, it would be one a month through the app, and at the end of each year, we make the tokens available in a print run, right? But just to be able to focus on other things, and also to not just spoil all the content, you can kind of release a character a month, and that's like putting fingers in the dike, plugging the water leaking, or you can step back, let the water rush out for a bit, and focus on solving the bigger thing, which is getting these out as an ensemble. So I think there will be a pause coming up at some point soon. Just they take so much work to do just one character at a time, and that work could be better spent putting the team together, getting the ensemble together, getting the expansions out, and then one day eventually maybe getting back to that thing. Yeah. Far future.
Yeah, I think it's
Let's
important.
all look to it now.
If it wasn't clear from what Evan's just said, the brass tacks answer is releasing a character a month takes up a lot of Steve's time, because he has to not only make sure that the art's ready and that the almanac's written up and all that, but that it plays nice with all the other characters we've currently got out. And every minute, and it's a significant number of minutes that Steve's doing that, he's not working on the expansions. And we really, really, really want the expansions to come out. And I know everyone watching this does, except for that one guy. Screw you, Steve. But no, everyone.
Of all the games.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I just plucked that out of my recent memory.
There's Evil Steve.
Yeah, Evil Steve.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically that's the answer. We are going to.
Steve's are bad, but all the Bens and Alexes just get a free pass.
Yeah.
All right.
We're gonna do
let's see how it
something. We're gonna do something cool instead of character releases for a bit. I'm not going to say what that is just yet, but I hope you'll all like it when it happens. But yeah, let's move on before anyone kicks down the door and kills us. Okay, this is a really cool one. When making Blood on the Clock Tower, were the 4 main types of character, townsfolk, outsider, minion, and demon, known at the start, or did that happen iteratively?
Sorry,
I was playing the
Steve had a game design idea and decided to tell me immediately in the middle of the Q&A.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's
So we can get the question here. This is game design happening live on camera.
Real time.
spoiler alert. Right. Well, Steve, when making the game, were the 4 character types, so townsfolk, outsider, minion, demon, known? Did you know that stuff at the start, or did they happen later during the design process?
It happened later. It took a couple of months. Originally there was just the only outsider was the drunk. There were townsfolk. I think it was cultists.
There was a saint in the first game.
Really?
Yeah, because
no,
we've told this story a million times.
No,
there was no kind of town square, no way of tracking who was who. So the saint saw their ability and went, "Oh, if I get executed, that's really bad."
Yeah.
They hid under a table. It's like a 90-minute game, and at the end, the good team is celebrating, and then there's this other dude there. We're like, "Who are you?" Like, "Yay, we won!" What? Who are you? Like, I'm the saint. Where were you the whole game? Like, I saw him like hiding under a table the whole time. Oh man. But yeah, there was a saint in the first game. Yeah.
Yeah. The original concept for the character spread was townsfolk, cultist, werewolf, because it was a werewolf mod, where the drunk would get added in as a possibility to balance the game in favor of evil for play accounts that favor good. Because like if you played werewolf, you know, like there are certain play accounts where the game's balanced and it just works, and there are certain play accounts where good just has the advantage. So outsiders were literally created to rebalance the winning chances for evil at these other play accounts. By the time we had first game, it was pretty much set. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve, for confirming in your answer.
Sorry, interesting. Well, if you're a game designer, this is interesting. For everyone else, it's pretty boring. But Travelers probably came in at about 2-3 years afterwards. There were all of these character ideas where the character was just not bluffable. They were really loud. For example, the question came up with a lot of characters: when they were being bluffed by evil, why aren't you using your ability? And evil's like, I don't really feel like helping. I just want to sit on this awesome ability and never use it. So Travelers were initially where I put all the character ideas for characters that could not be bluffed. And then when people started turning up late, I started giving them these characters and went, well, why don't I just include this into the game? And then Fabled came later, where it's like, well, I need to fix this thing. Instead of just saying, here's a whole bunch of rules in the rule book, it's like, oh, here's a rule codified into a character, and we're going to play with this particular character. And we might not be done.
Yeah.
I'm toying with new character types, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So we'll see what happens.
I think it works.
Yeah, I think it
We're
works.
working on it.
So 50% of me and Jams think that it works.
There you go,
Which
guys.
one?
Barrowcog is coming.
I cannot believe that TPI hasn't released Barrowcog.
Yeah.
What
are we playing at?
What has happened to us?
Okay, this is one that gets asked a lot, and as far as I'm aware, there is no official answer to this. What is the best way to submit character ideas to TPI? And this person adds, I have two in particular that I have received great feedback on.
There is an official answer to this, actually. If you go on the TPI website, bloodontheclockfire.com, they're in our, I don't know, this legal something.
In our legal terms.
Yep, there's a legal terms channel. I think it's section 6, so you know the average. Of
5%.
But there is actually a process where if you read, in the terms and conditions on the website, it explains word by word how you can submit character ideas. You have to email them to the email address that is there on the website. There's a specific process of doing it. Doing it in that way is the way that it guarantees that the ideas are submitted. That does not mean that we will have the time to consider them or read them. It does not mean that they will get used, but it is the official process for actually submitting character types. So we know there are lots of people who do tons of homebrew stuff and really interesting, cool things and really fascinating ideas. There is a way to submit them. Go on the website, you will find it.
So on that, if you do, the message that I reply with a lot is that, if you are looking to discuss fun character ideas you come up with, that's not the platform to do it. Just there isn't the bandwidth within the company to have that discussion, because there's a lot of suggestions. If you do submit them with that legal agreement, then they will go into a sheet that can be viewed by members of TPI, and anyone whose idea in some way does lead to a character will always be credited with that in some way. But there is no guarantee of anyone seeing it, and there's no discussion usually going to happen. So if you want a fun discussion about it, then there's lots of forums for that.
I will add to that. Just to give a bit of background on that statement. It's called the Creative Copyright Agreement. Basically, the premise is that a lot of people, when they talk about a character idea and we're like, oh, we've kind of got one that does that already, they feel disappointed. But I'm actually, no, that's good. You're in the right clock tower headspace because Steve's already thought of that, or that's already out there. So this agreement exists because if someone comes up with an idea that Steven has already thought on, or that we're already working on, that's already in the works, it's a way to be going, yeah, we acknowledge that we had this already. We got this agreement because the creator of Spirit Island, I think it was Spirit Island, had a similar one. And a few of our friends were like, hey, Spirit Island creator has this thing, like, hey, I'm not going to look at your ideas unless you agree to this thing first for these reasons. You should get a similar one. So we went to the first law company that we hired to help us. It's a gaming company in the US. We were like, hey, bang. Hey, we want an agreement similar to this Spirit Island thing. Can you write one up for us? And they went, oh yeah, we're also their lawyer. We wrote that up for them. We're like, great, we found the right lawyers. So genuinely, it helps that Steve is a relatively offline kind of person. But if you send characters in, Reggie might read them, I might read them, James might read them. If you don't send that agreement, we do not show them to Steve.
I actually do stop reading the email.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh no.
But the people who do send that through, we don't have a lot of bandwidth. Is the noun that's come up a lot today for a lot of internal discussion about this. But people who do send through character suggestions with that agreement, we forward straight to Steve. That's how it works. Yeah.
Cool. Good answer. I think we are possibly on our last question here, which is good. This has been quite a lengthy Q&A for obvious reasons.
What are the reasons?
Just can't be bothered to stop. Yeah. And this one's a really cool one to finish on, actually. It's a fun one. So, you might not have thought about this. You might not have an answer for it. But how exactly does the flavour for each non-evil character that causes death work? For example, the gossip. How does someone's gossip kill someone?
It's pretty obvious why this session's going pretty long. I think the answer to that question is pretty obvious too. But...
You definitely know the answer. We all do.
No, that's.
Loose lips, simp, ship.
Yeah.
I was about to say that.
That makes sense.
To be honest, yeah, loose lips think shit. In Clock Tower, I've used death as a stand-in for something bad will happen. It's not that for every character there is a sensible link between their actions and the loss of life. It's more that death as a sort of generic concept becomes a placeholder for negative consequence. So the core idea of the gossip is, and that's also why the gossip is phrased in the way that I think it's if you say something true. I'm pretty sure it's if you gossip something true, someone dies. I could have written it the other way. It would have been easier for everybody if I hadn't written it the other way. Whereas if you say something false, someone dies.
It's the
But
gossip.
you're the gossip.
Oh,
Yes.
you said it loud.
Yeah.
So I like the idea of the gossip as a character, or many gossips, constantly spreading lies, but their intent is good. So death just sort of stands in as negative consequence for saying a falsehood. There's a lot of times this comes up in Clock Tower where I want something bad to happen, and I usually revert to death. You become drunk, or you're executed, because there's not a lot of other penalties you can give to a player that aren't actually a bonus. There's a lot of penalties if they're invisible. The penalty is usually drunkenness or poisoning. I can't at this moment think of anything else. If the penalty is not hidden, if it's something that's loud, it's often known for the entire group, and you confirm your own identity. So also it just for mechanical reasons too, it just plays into, it confuses the night, what happened at night. So there's a lot of characters where death is caused, and death usually symbolizes danger or negative consequence. For example, the harlot or the gambler. So yeah, that's the answer.
There you have it. Death is not the end. Okay, cool. I think we're going to call it there. Thanks a lot for tuning in. I have no idea if I'm talking to 5 people or 50 people right now, but certainly this will be available on both our YouTube channel, and we'll post an update about it on the Patreon so everyone can see it. But for the meantime, look after each other out there, and we're going to go on a pub crawl now.